We've got political editor from the Australian Financial Review, Philip Khoury, with me. Phil, let's start on the Northern Territory. 8.5% margin in Solomon, but I think it's in play given the law and order issues and the various other concerns there. So it could be one risk among many for Labor heading into the federal election.
Yeah, there's a lot of seats like that, Kieran, around the country, and that's what's going to make, I think, this election more interesting than perhaps previous ones. Is, you know, in every state, I mean, it's a sort of statement of the obvious, is important, but and obviously the states with most of the seats, New South Wales, Victoria, etc. But there's little outliers all over the country, and Solomon's one of those. You hear all sorts of things about similar seats in different states. You know, someone told me keep your eye on Gorton in Victoria or Whitlam in New South Wales, states that are not normally sort of, you know, in front line. In fact, talking yesterday to someone in the coalition, and typically an election is decided by about 25 seats, and they're looking at, they reckon it's about 41 this time that are to some varying degrees in play, and which is a lot, and means the leaders are going to have to get around a lot of seats and stretch themselves pretty thin. But that's given it's going to be so tight, every little seat's going to matter more.
I think you wrote in the newspaper this week that there's not you don't expect a uniform swing in any election, but in this one, it's even more so, I guess, that those 40 seats or thereabouts that you're talking about, and different states have different moods and vibes about the Labor brand. For example, Labor in WA is very different to Victoria.
Yeah, it's really compartmentalised. Like, so obviously Queensland is a coalition stronghold, and, you know, we did a compilation of our poll numbers recently, and I think Newspoll did the same, and it found that's holding up very strongly for the coalition. Victoria's gone the other way. Labor's fallen off a cliff in Victoria. The brand down there is really toxic. WA, nothing's moved very much, and we all thought after the last election that would bounce back towards the Conservatives and gift Dutton back those 3 or 4 seats Labor won, but that doesn't seem to be happening. And then New South Wales has swung a bit towards the coalition, but probably not as much as Dutton needs. So
in your hometown, they love Mallee.
Yeah, South Aussies. But again,
there aren't enough seats.
There's only 2 seats in South Australia anyone's watching. One is Boothby, which the Liberals lost last time and think they can get back. And then the seat of Sturt, which everyone and their auntie's having a go at. That's Chris Pyne's old seat, old safe Liberal seat. And you've got the Greens, the Teals and Labor all thinking they can win it. So that's what I mean. The vibe is very different in different jurisdictions.
And so
the ACT, it's always Labor.
Yeah, in fact, yeah. So the Prime Minister's been here today, but he won't come back. I think he's doing insiders on Sunday. But other than that, he won't spend much time in the
Well, no, they never do, mate. Yeah,
no votes here. But when you look to the overall result, it's starting off a small Labor, majority margin and majority. You would say minority government's most likely, but you really can't predict, can you, with any certainty, because so much of it to me looks like it will come down to the 34 days ahead.
I was thinking that today, like all campaigns matter, obviously, but some more than others, and I think this one will be really, really influential. One of the problems the government, I think, has is I think people are already strung out. When the PM made that decision 3 weeks ago to cancel the April 12 election, it was a bit of an anticlimax, and the thing feels like it's been dragging on forever. I can understand why he went for the shortest campaign possible. And Dutton had a sort of fairly bad stretch during those 3 weeks. They just sort of, ran off the rails there, and that's given Labor the ascendancy. But, Dutton can peg it back in a campaign. He does speak more clearly. He gets to the point. He doesn't mind having a dip. And there's probably more interest in him, given people don't know as much about him, and they're more.
They were both sharp today. I
They
thought.
were. They were
both pretty sharp.
Yeah, but Dutton went straight in on power prices and petrol prices, where Albanese was more about themes and, memes and things like that. I'm not being critical either way, but there's probably more interest in Dutton because he's much more of an unknown. But he has a chance, but I still think it'll be, we can't forget the mathematics here or the history, and they're both stacked heavily against the coalition.
Yeah, they are. The mathematics, the history, and then you've got to look to those key moments in campaigns. The debates when they go head to head, I think, will be pretty important to see who handles themselves better and if there is any confrontation at any of those between the two.
Well, they're both. You can see Peter Dutton's really sort of reined in that he used to have the odd lash at an ABC journalist, and he doesn't do any of that anymore. He's kept his temperament fairly level now for a long time, but again, he hasn't done a lot of press conferences with the Canberra Press Gallery, and they can be pestiferous, as we know, Kieran. so he'll have to sort of rise above it. Albanese is prone to getting snappy as well. He gets snarky and snappy when he's not having a good day. So yeah, you know what it's like. Everything's hypersensitive now. The campaign's on, and the little things that didn't matter so much can matter a real lot.
And one last one. Interested to hear what you think the impact of the Orange Man there in the Oval Office.
Well, look at it. It's fascinating.
How does he?
Well, look at it today. The Prime Minister wheeled it out as an attack line almost. He basically, when he had that line in his opening statement, he didn't name Trump, but we all knew what he was talking about. And when David Crowe asked him, he didn't. We were comparing Dutton to Trump. The PM didn't reject that. So, yeah, Trump's almost become a pejorative, which is sort of a bit weird when you don't want the guy to hit you with tariffs next week as well. But it's a real thing because from the moment he humiliated Zelensky in the White House, public opinion in this country and elsewhere has turned very sharply against him. And even though Dutton doesn't cultivate any association, it's there and it's become a negative. And obviously Labor's going to use it.